Hello, this is John with Theology Ed. All right, we're going to dig in a little bit here to the McKittrick line. That's, the Antebellum line. So, get out of the U.S. Antebellum, before the Civil War. McKittrick, of course, is the producer also of Donnie Darko. So, he's had a long history of being involved in films that are full of important predictive programming related to this time. Donnie Darko, of course, having a lot to say about the Donald Trump presidency and influence over the United States and the destruction of the United States. As we'll see probably this week, if Trump declares he's running for president and were to be indicted or something, right? And we see just how his influence, or he is being used to divide the country. Like in I Pick Out 2, the Psalm 23 graffiti on the wall has the lightning coming out of it, and then the flag splits flying in front of it. And what's the name embedded, hidden in there? Donald, right? So out of Donald comes this great division of the United States. So this is an interesting producer. He's involved in the Get Out and Us films. He produced those along with Blum and Blumhouse films, or whatever it's called. So Get Out pointed to the June 21st and July 5th eclipses, annular eclipse on June 21st, 2020, and the July 5th penumbral eclipse, the Buck Moon eclipse that received so much attention in 2020 on the channel. And in predictive programming, that was Get Out. Then, of what? Get Out of the U.S. That's the next film that was produced. The 9/11 written Us, where they say, who are those people? That's us. And then they say, what are you people? We're Americans. And that's the us, Get Out of the U.S. And before the Civil War, Antebellum. Now, of course, with the Blum line, we've already been talking about that. And if you haven't seen my previous videos, I've been producing or publishing a lot of videos this past week, and views are down. I think they're getting less notifications. People are getting fewer notifications also. It's changing habits, going over and looking to BitChute. But these videos that we've been doing are, I think, and they have very valuable information in many cases, and original stuff. So this is new content, and I hope people take a look. If you haven't seen those videos, it's worth the time going back and looking. But we looked at Blum, The Hunt, and Freaky in the most recent video, and really with the date range we're in right now, it's important to dig into these because today is November 7th, so that's 11/7 or 7/11 date, right? A lot of predictive programming points to 7/11. The eclipse is coming as well on November 8th, 11/8, also an 88 date. That is an election date. The midterm elections are going to happen on this November 8th, the date of the eclipse. Then the next day is November 9th. That's a 9/11 date. Then the day after that is November 10th. That is the 314th day of the year, and this is the year of the tiger with all the Pi programming, the life of Pi, the skullduggery, grabbing the shoulder of the girl with the tiger on it, like that's the attack, and then shooting at her from the side of the Pi written on his face, the letter Pi. We saw the Pi attack with the 314 on the die falling in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. We've done a lot of Pi predictive programming work, and it's pretty clearly there. So it could be pointing to that date, or it could be pointing to a Pi variant, or it could be pointing to Chairman Pi. We've talked about that. It could be pointing to several things, or even several of them altogether. One possibility is that it points to NATO's psychological operations, which if you go take a look into that, I think they're called Pi operations, okay, which the whole year has been filled with this in relation to the events going on in Ukraine with Russia and NATO and all that. So anyways, I haven't talked about that in previous videos. I've been meaning to for months. There you go. Now I've done it. Anyway, so what we have here is Get Out of the U.S. Antebellum. Now, when we looked at Freaky, we saw that it points very clearly to a beaver moon eclipse, which the beaver moon is the November moon. And that also is in Scorpio when the pyramid is hit, and we have the attack on a pyramid in Freaky. So it seems to be pretty consistent. Seems like we're pointing right to this period from the end of October to around November 22nd, I believe it is, the end of Scorpio. But this week is, I think, a week to really focus on, because after that, November 10th, we have 11/11, November 11th on Friday, and that is repeatedly coming up in us. 11/11, the first one to get killed is the Jeremiah 11:11 sign guy in us. And who's the one to kill him? The guy who has 11:11 etched in his forehead. And the night that the people come out of the underground, the tethered, and come to attack, what happens? Right before the attack that night, they hear the baseball game, and it's 11:11 in the seventh inning. Then she goes in the room, and her son Jason points to the clock and says, "Look, it's 11:11." And she's getting freaked out by this, and she goes to the other room, and then you have a blackout. And when you have the blackout, they come. Okay, and so there's a lot of stuff pointing to 11/11. So we're right in a week that's worth watching carefully. So a lot of watch dates in here. No predictions, but definitely a lot of watch dates. And I think with the Trump situation, possible Trump declaration, announcement of candidacy for president, he's going to run for president in 2024, and then maybe even be indicted by the end of the week. Okay, so that'd be quite the week if he comes out and announces he's running for office and then is arrested. Okay. Wow, that's a loud motorcycle, isn't it? I don't know if you heard it, but I did. Now, let's dig in. So when, this is the McKittrick path, get out of the U.S. before the Civil War, when is that? Well, if you go look at the poster, right, you can see they're actually drawing attention to get out of the U.S. Antebellum. They put, from the producer of Get Out and Us, Antebellum. So they're there, Get Out, Us, Antebellum. I wonder if this butterfly over the mouth and has some... in some respects, suggests some more censorship, silencing of people. It'll be interesting to see. Now, the film starts with a chemtrail in the background and on a plantation in the 21st century, pretending to be the 19th century around the period of the Civil War. They're supposedly Confederate soldiers, and they are in a park that is a park that does these... battle reenactments, and unbeknownst to most of the people in the 21st century, they actually have a real plantation where they've been kidnapping people and making them slaves and trying to sort of recreate the past and bring America back to its roots, which is where the white man and the white people have more power and are actually free, and the black population is enslaved and all of that. Well, anyways, they tried to escape. A few of these kidnapped individuals tried to escape, and a couple of them were killed, and their bodies were burned in the burn shed. He goes in. This is Denton, I think is his name, Blake Denton, I think. But he's the politician in the film. In real life, in the 21st century, he's the politician. And then he comes here, and he's sort of like the ruler of the plantation. So the leader of the white supremacist Confederate Civil War wannabes, okay, who consider themselves patriots and the people who hold to the traditional values that are real Americanism, all that, nationalists. That guy, he is running for office in the film, okay, at the time, and when he's going for running for office, it appears the outcome isn't very favorable to him, and he's going to have to battle it in the courts. The ballot. So he's going to, we're going to, keep going through the legal processes to defend the victory. Now, so we have a contested election. He's running as a senator. So this is not a presidential election. So possibly it's looking at a midterm election there. But he also is pretty clearly representing, I think, a Trump-like character. And being a McKittrick film and having Donnie Darko in his background, wouldn't be surprised at all if there's a deliberate link between this character and Trump, or at least the Trump-type supporters and MAGA Q folk. Okay, so anyways, she was one of the people that helped them try to escape, and he says, "I ponder your depths of loyalty," and he makes her say her name, which is the name he gave her, or they gave her. It's not her birth name, and when they kidnapped her, they changed her name to Eden. Say your name. Similar sound to the Black Lives Matter related stuff, but in this case, he's the one commanding her to say her name, and if the name is a name he gave her, which means he's basically saying, show you're submissive. Okay, so you give me no choice, so he's gonna burn his initials into her. marking her as his property. And he says, if you try to escape again, I'll take you to the burn shed myself. Say your name, Eden. Okay. So we see that out there in the burn shed that night, somebody else is being burned, their body, and the smoke is going up in front of the full moon. And you will see the full moon all throughout this film, even when it makes no sense to see it. For example, here you see it at the beginning, and 6 weeks later, well, there shouldn't be a full moon 6 weeks later, because that's not 2 months later. It should be roughly a new moon. But I think 6 weeks later, I think you still get full moons in this film, because every time they show the moon or show the night sky, you get a full moon. And there's a heavy emphasis on the full moon being related to whatever's happening, and the smoke passing in front of it, just like in the Thriller video or these other films. They often like to represent an eclipse, a lunar eclipse, by blocking the moon with something, not necessarily with the shadow of the earth or whatever. Okay, so they use these things to represent eclipsing, one thing eclipsing another. Okay, so they're on a plantation. They think they need to get out again. What happens? They go out. I'm going to get to the more important stuff. Who are the bad guys in this film, right? Who are we going to look at as the villains, the people that need to be thrown out and defeated? Well, they are these people who are calling themselves Confederates under that Blake Denton, I think is his name again, character. I'm sorry about all the dogs. Can't do much about it. And I want to get these videos out quickly. And with the week already here this week, I'd like to get some of these out as soon as possible. So bear with me. Sorry about that. They're not my dogs. So in comes the Blake Denton character, I think is his name again. I'm going to say I think is his name every time I say his name until I know it's his name. Actually, now you know I just think it's his name. If I'm wrong, we'll find out at the end, because I know I have a slide at the end that actually tells me his name. But he comes in, he says, "As you were." All right, they're going to celebrate their victory over at Milliken's over the Yanks. And again, this is in the 21st century, so these are reenactments, so it makes it pretty pathetic, their victory, right? Just a reenactment victory. But we got those blue-bellied bastards on their heels. Possible reference to the red versus blue paradigm in the U.S. or what's going on, right? So possible way to indicate that these are representing themselves as the right wing as opposed to the left wing, or the red party as opposed to the blue party. Washington in our sights, possibly another allusion to what's going on in the U.S. right now, right? The news is representing the Republicans as possibly being able to gain more seats, I don't know, take Senate or whatever. And then also there's just a tendency right now in the U.S., according to the news and what's been happening, where the right seems to be gaining power. For example, in the Supreme Court, they're getting decisions that are going their way that they haven't been able to get to go their way in a long time, like overturning Roe v. Wade, things like that. Okay, Washington's in our sights, but we must never relent, and so on. We will sacrifice our blood and fertilize the soil of our homeland. And it's an interesting way to turn the phrase, right? We will sacrifice our blood and fertilize the soil of our homeland with what? Our blood, not the blood of tyrants and so on, right? Not the, which is usually what would be quoted. So it may be a way of saying that they're the ones that are going to end up being killed. This is the only hope we have of retaining our heritage. Again, that's a conservative perspective, retaining the heritage, maintaining things the way they are. Although, of course, conservatives aren't, as a general rule, supporting anything even remotely close to actual slavery or these things. This is how the media and propaganda portrays them. Just like the other side, often those people are not nearly as extreme as they are represented by the media. The media and the propaganda is designed to make everybody hate one another, to generate a conflict. But anyways, this land was always ours. It's our rightful inheritance, and rest assured, our national estate will not be stolen from us. So they're worried about stolen, possibly elections. Remember, he's going to contest the outcome of an election. It's hinted in this film. So what he probably has in mind is the election stealing, okay, a stolen election. So we have the people who are against the stolen election, allegedly. Okay, not that I'm talking about what's really happening and whether the election is stolen or not. If you followed my channel, you know that I think all politics is pretty meaningless. Whether elections are stolen or not, I don't think we're given real options that matter. Right, left, same thing. They all serve the same masters. We see that in IPEC 02. Whether it was Bush or Obama, they're both tied up to Satan. Satan is controlling them, right? They're under the same authority, serving the same purposes and ends. But anyways, he says, I have faith in this because I have faith in you. You all are the future, and it is you who will lead us to the ultimate victory. But for tonight, do whatever you want. And here we got these girls we've kidnapped and made slaves, and you can do whatever you want with them. They have to satisfy your needs, fulfill them all. Okay, so let's see. Again, here's another exchange. This guy has one of these kidnapped women, and he's very uncomfortable with the idea of taking advantage of this privilege, supposedly, of having relations with her. And she recognizes and thinks maybe he's friendly, but it turns out when she treats him like that, he feels the need to sort of show that he's a real Confederate, and he says, I'm as much a Confederate as any man here. I'm a patriot. You understand me? So again, they represent themselves as patriots. You're seeing this. This side also later in the film, they call somebody else. One guy calls another guy a snowflake, right? You're definitely getting the whole. This is the Republicans. They're the slave masters. You're getting the right, left. Same stuff we got in Get Out and all the predictive programming so far in this series. All right. Let's see. Why that reminds me the shed needs cleaning. Shed is where the body of his maybe wife or girlfriend or love or whoever, she was killed in the escape and burned, and now he's going to have to go in there and clean it up. And they're going to want to get out. Now this girl, who Eden is her new name that she's being forced to use. When she's about to go to sleep, she hears his phone ringing because he makes her sleep with him. This is the politician makes her sleep with him. Interestingly, she has a PhD. She's an outspoken person interviewed on news and things like this, as speaking out against racism in society and so on. And so he insisted on kidnapping her and then making her sleep with him. So again, that just shows you supposed to represent him as even worse, right? I mean, he's not satisfied doing this to just anybody. He wants to go and humble the person who had the audacity to speak up. Okay, and she, when she hears the phone, remembers her life in the past before being kidnapped, and so we go back to this now. And here's what she was like. She was married, had a family, very comfortable. She didn't have the burn in her back. She was on the news, being interviewed by people, and this had a lot of predictive programming in this scene. So there she is, Veronica Henley, PhD. So if you read the ticker below, they're requiring DNA swabs to be submitted for every citizen within 30 days. That would be pointing to perhaps something that would be used to do some sort of testing for DNA. Okay. Every citizen within 30 days. Assault weapons ban bill was struck down. So I think we saw something like that happen, but a bill that was designed to ban assault weapons, it was struck down. Here, Blake Denton. There he is. Louisiana State Senator Blake Denton introduces bill in Baton Rouge to protect Confederate monuments. Remember all the monuments that were torn down recently in the last couple of years? That was here hinted at, I think. This was before all that happened. This film was released, okay, as I recall, or produced. And then there was a hurricane, Category 5 hurricane that went grazed South Carolina, which I think just happened just a few weeks ago, right? It was a Category 5 hurricane, crossed Florida, and then went up the coast and grazed South Carolina, if I remember. Anyways, so what we have here, this conversation, I understand you think you are defending the plight of the black man. This is the guy here talking. I guess in your case, the black woman. But we are doing a disservice to the argument, much less your people, by conflating race with basic common sense. I would say this: the disenfranchisement of black people in America, I guess that's her speaking now, is by design, written into the actual DNA of this country. Your argument, however, is flawed, your argument, however flawed, has been successfully promoted and propagated through repetition. We hear it over and over again, but I'm here to tell you that this vicious cycle of inequity will soon be broken. Okay? Listen, it will soon be broken, and they go, boom. Boom. Now, I don't know if this is an indication of something explosive happening that sets off a chain of events that's supposed to break this vicious cycle of inequity. Okay? But I think it's possible. I think we may be looking for this to be set off with a boom event of something sort of big, maybe. I don't know. We'll just have to see. Maybe nothing like that, but maybe there will be. Now, all right, Mommy, why was that man so angry? Anger is just fear. Are you guys friends? No. Okay, now we go to her library. They give us a close with the library. This is interesting. If you go through and look up these books, you'll find a lot of books that have interesting, a lot of interesting content on the topic of race, politics, and so on. But one that stands out that I want to mention here is Madeleine Albright's book, Fascism, which actually discusses the possibility of what happens if Trump will not accept election results and whether that leads to fascism, basically. Okay? And that is in that book. And there, see it, Fascism, Madeleine Albright. So I think it's interesting that the library here, basically in the center of the shelf they show us, has this book that actually talked about the real threat of how terrible things will get if Trump does not accept the election results as valid. Okay, and that is the direction we're going, right? So we already saw it happening, right? He didn't accept this. Then there was the January 6th thing, which they make a huge deal out of. Then he continues not to accept it. And then we have the FBI raid. He apparently has held on to all these classified documents, but now he's going to run for office and possibly be indicted. Right, so we're getting this sort of history. And a lot of the candidates running for office right now in the midterm elections are people who also don't think those election results are valid. They thought there was fraud. Now, that book, Fascism, by Madeleine Albright, actually discusses the possibility and just how dangerous it is, in her mind, in relation to fascism in the United States. So, there you have it. All right. So, are we vegan this week? You know, they always have to have their vegan thing in there. Are we vegan this week? Babe, the struggle is real. Got it. So, one non-vegan pancake coming up. Babe, no, I cannot. I guess that means that she ended up settling on, yeah, we're vegans. So, maybe that's why she ends up being the one that survives. Okay. Because if you ever watch all these, the vegan or the vegetarian always survives, and the mediator is the one that doesn't. Okay. Now we're going to get back to the script. We're back in on the plantation where she's been kidnapped. And again, see, they got the full moon always back there. Now, in the script, they have here, he's referred to Blake Denton as him. There's silence as him is intensely listening to what the caller is saying on the other end. We cannot hear them. Now, this is not what was actually included in the film. Well, what did you say? Silence, Steve say. It's under control. I said I will handle it. She is gone. We see Veronica still at the window listening to the one-sided conversation. Veronica is her real name, and then she was Eden, of course, there. And him says, getting frustrated, if I see your pathetic husband on the news one more time, yes, understood, it's handled. Okay, notice that in the script they planned, the writer was intending for them to talk about the actual story, okay, the actual news, or the actual film, which was about what? It was about the girl being kidnapped, the woman being kidnapped, her husband wanting to find her. That sounds related, right? But here's what actually was included in the film. The arrangements are already being made. Now look, the ballot box. We'll go all the way to the court. We'll file one way or another. It's under control. Is there anything else? What's under control? He had the "it's under control" idea. It's handled. But it was switched gratuitously. It has nothing to do with the story of the film. They are sneaking in the contested election. Okay? What they're saying is this guy is the senator who is unhappy about an election result and is contesting it. That's who he is. Okay? And he's a senator. So now we're looking at maybe a contested midterm election, or at least a contested election of a senator. Long story short, MAGA candidate type guy, maybe even pointing to Trump, maybe not, maybe just pointing to MAGA candidate during the midterm election, is not satisfied with the election and plans to contest it. That's the situation under the full moon by the burn shed. Okay. She's planning to go. They're going to escape this night. And notice, when's the escape? When does the quote-unquote uprising happen? Right after they show us a moon, full moon, being eclipsed again. Just like Thriller, just like all these other films. Okay, we get that. Then she reaches over to see if he's asleep, and she's going to try to get out. She does. They go outside, and these two quote-unquote Confederates are out there, and they hear something. What was that? Oh, what is it? The spooks got you spooked. So you get your sort of racism, not sort of, you get your racist way to refer to these people as spooks. There's no one out here this late. So look at that moon, though. Beautiful. Drawing attention to it. We still got smoke and stuff going in front of it. Beautiful. Yeah, well, enjoy it, snowflake. So you get your, again, even the jargon being used is designed to situate them as the quote-unquote right-wing anti-woke people. Daniel, well, somebody comes up and gets him under the full moon. He gets killed. They get the phone, and then you get your 911. Listen, if I don't make it, the world has to find out about this place. It has to end tonight. Again, related to this moon, that timing. And this moon, incidentally, is not on the day of the election necessarily. I don't know if the election was a few weeks earlier and now it's just after the election, or if this is soon, or near the election night. I think it has to be near it because of the phone conversation, right? He's talking about the ballot box and we'll take it to the courts. You're probably not going to be talking about that weeks and weeks later. That's going to be something soon after the election where you have to come up with your strategy for how you're going to contest the results. I'm not sure. But anyways, it's clearly in a season related to the election, and also the full moon is being featured, and there was an eclipse. So putting it all together, it sounds like now, roughly. And then you get a 911, the 9/11 call, which they often use the phone to show us when they're looking at the 9/11 event. But the call is dropped. Again, sort of a way to refer to a loss of necessary power, what you needed. We need his face to unlock the phone. They go in, they get in a little fight with them. One of the guys dies. She drags him into the burn shed under the full moon. This doesn't end here. He's yelling. Well, she sets fire to him, burns him, and walks away. And so now we're seeing the quote-unquote MAGA Q, white supremacist, racist, and everything else bad guy is being burned to death in the uprising that began, which as a 9/11 related event under the eclipsed moon, and we get the full moon again. I mean, all sorts of time can pass, and the moon always stays just under the camera line, right on the horizon. They always have the moon in the scene. I mean, they just say there, wherever you get a sky, you get the moon. And here the smoke's going up in front of it again. Okay, we're getting this full moon event. Then she's going to run off, and it's starting to turn day, so that time, I guess it was going down, the moon going down, because soon after that you start to get a sunrise, and you start to see the sun, morning light. She's riding off on a horse, trying to escape, gets in some battles, and fights this other lady, kills her, and then runs through one of the reenactment battles, and comes out the other side, and we see again a plane overhead, spraying towards the end. Police out here because they did manage to call the police, I guess. And at the end, we get Antebellum. Here it is, the Blake Denton Antebellum War Reenactment, Civil War Reenactment Park being destroyed. But look, there was an FBI raid of Denton's property. So again, seems to be pointing to the sort of Trump MAGA contested election, raid his property, destroy the property, go after him legally, and everything else. So that is what Antebellum seems to be about. It is the McKittrick line, get out of the U.S. before the Civil War, which is going to be associated with the FBI-rated politician who contested an election, and who would be considered the racist and the white supremacist and the, the old-fashioned, outdated person, sort of in love with bygone centuries or whatever. That guy is going to be taken out. Okay, not necessarily a person, not necessarily he's going to be killed or anything, but he's going to be his side, that perspective, the MAGA Q folks. We've already talked about them in the other videos. These videos that we've talked about, these films in the various Get Out of the U.S. line. This is the Escaping the USA series. So those films are highlighting the unlikely terrorists, right? It is the geriatric terrorist. All right, that's who that is. It is in Freaky. It's the geriatric serial killer, the old white guy. Never underestimate the racist and so on propensities of the old white guy. Okay, The Hunt. They go after just normal conservative guys and gals that seemed pretty harmless as human beings, but they went after him anyways and killed him. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at them targeting a part of the population that may be fairly harmless, actually, but treating them as if they are terrible monsters like they're represented in these films. All right. Either way, that's what you have. So Antebellum, how does it come about? Well, the contested election, white supremacist candidate whose property gets FBI raided. Apparently, there's an uprising against that approach that leads to conflict. All right. Like, subscribe, share, and take care. Blessings.